Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to make a video for you and talk a little bit about the Violet Voss Sweet Violets palette. This is a new palette that came to Sephora recently, and it is a mini palette of hers. She's extending that mini palette collection that she has already created. So I'm really excited to show you a little bit about this palette, talk to you about my first impressions, a couple of looks that I've created, and then to show you some comparisons to some of the palettes that I have in my collection to help you decide whether or not you need this palette to be added to your collection or whether you can pass it up. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the palette itself. It is a 10-pan palette and it has 10 very gorgeous shades. There's 5 mattes and 5 shimmery metallic shades. There are no pressed glitters or anything that is like that in this particular palette, which I'm very happy about. The colors are very, very pigmented. They do take a little bit more work to blend, but I think they blend out really nicely. If you don't mind having a purple crease, you can make a full look out of this palette with no issue. I do like that they included sort of a bone cream color and then a more shimmery champagne kind of color in order to help balance out the palette. When you look at that shade in the pan, this one right here, you can see that it looks very champagne in the palette, but when you put it on your eyes, it actually does have a bit of a pink cast to it, which I think helps tie it into the rest of the palette a little bit better. You do have both warm tones and cool tones in this palette, so you can take your look in a couple of different directions. In general, they're all still going to look very purple, very vivid, but you can sort of make subtle differentiations between those looks. I do feel like it's pretty travel friendly. It's nice and sturdy. It's got a very strong magnetic closure, so I think that works really nicely. With these shades, I didn't feel like the shadows stained my lids. I didn't get any irritation from these. When I was applying them, I did do my eyes first, but I did not feel like there was substantial fallout from these shades. So you could do eyes first or your face products first. In general, I think this would be great for people with green eyes, brown eyes, or hazel eyes, but anybody could use this palette and I think it would look very nice. A couple of cons that I think we need to keep in mind for this palette: while it does have a mirror, the mirror is pretty small, so that's something to bear in mind. And then the pan sizes are also pretty small, so you can put your finger in them in order to apply with a finger, especially for some of the shimmery shades, but you don't have a lot of extra room, so it's a very tight wiggle that you can do as opposed to kind of spreading your finger around in the pan itself. And if you're somebody that prefers to have a lot of variety with their palettes, this is a monochromatic palette. You're going to get a couple of different variations that you can do, but in general, you're going to get a bold purple look. And if you're not looking for a palette that's going to create multiple bold purple looks, this would not be the palette for you. I do want to include some close-ups of the packaging so you can take a look at what that looks like and some swatches for this particular palette. swatches in the world, but you can get a feel for some of the different warmer tones, some of the cooler tones. You have more of this blue purple over here that really can darken out an outer V, and then you can see this champagne-y kind of color comes off a little bit more like a pink champagne, but it has a great reflection. And then this bone kind of color will work really nicely for a lot of people as a brow bone highlight. This shade in particular, when you kind of sheer it out, I think works really nicely to help with a transition shade. Makes this a little bit more of a one look palette if you're going for full monochromatic. Overall, I think this palette is super, super pretty. I think it's a great travel size. You have 10 beautiful shades, 5 mattes, 5 shimmers. You can create a variety of different warm and cool toned purple looks, and I'm going to show you a couple that I created so that you can see kind of the versatility of this palette. So for the first look, I definitely opted to go with more of the cool toned purples. I did the light lilac color up into the crease. I did the bone shade along my brow bone. I used the sort of champagne-y pink shade in my tear duct, and then I kind of patted with my finger one of the deeper purple glitters all along my lid, topped it with a little bit of mascara, and I think the look came together really nicely. The second look that I did, I wanted to go a little bit more warm toned, so I grabbed one of the mid-tone purples from the center of the palette. I grabbed that bluish purple from the end of the palette and faded that or blended it out very, very well up into my crease. I tapped one of the purples onto my lid, and I used that shimmery champagne-y pink color on the center of my lid to create kind of a halo eye, which I think turned out really nice as well. And then for the last look that I did, I took that matte fuchsia and I used that to diffuse out over my lid into the crease. I took the fuchsia duochrome type shade and patted that all over my lid. I took the champagne pink color and again put that into my tear duct, and then I took the deeper warm toned purple and put that into my crease and outer V. Used a nice blending brush to blend those shades together, and then I used the bone shade up in my brow bone again. All in all, I think it came out really nicely once I applied a bright pink eyeliner to my waterline and then a black liquid liner to my upper lash line and topped with mascara. Okay, so I do also want to show you a couple of comparisons between some of the Juvia's Place palettes and the Sweet Violet palette. So we'll do Ife and Faso from the Magic palette. There's Faso, there's Ife. Ife is a little bit darker there. Then we have Makita from the Masquerade palette, which is right there. That's a little bit more of a pinky toned purple, and it's a lot brighter than some of these other ones. And then the last one is the purple from the Zulu palette. If you take a look at that, very similar to this particular shade here from the Sweet Violet palette. So overall, you know, you have some different options there, but none of those palettes are a purely purple palette. So if you're looking for that monochromatic look, you still need to go with the Sweet Violet. The next palette I wanted to compare this to is the Wanderlust palette from Profusion. This is a really inexpensive palette you can get at Walmart, and it's about $10. You do have a couple of these tones that are similar. You've got this purple that kind of goes with this one. These glittery shades are a little bit different from the glitters that you have in the Violet Voss palette, but there is some comparison there. So if you have Wanderlust, you may not necessarily need Sweet Violet. So the next one to swatch is the NYX Ultimate, the Rainbow palette. There's a couple of kind of purple and pinky mattes in here that I think are similar, so I am going to swatch those three for you. Okay, so the next one to compare this Sweet Violet's palette to would actually be the ColourPop It's My Pleasure palette, which is their monochromatic purple. I did swatch it on my other arm just because of my first arm getting kind of purple to begin with, so I felt like the colors weren't going to be quite perfect. I do have a pretty substantial difference as well. The It's My Pleasure is definitely more warm toned. Definitely more warm toned with some of these particular shades, and then you do have this kind of transition-y lilac kind of color, and you do have this color, Mr. Sandman, which is pretty similar to the one in the Violet Voss palette, but I think this one is brighter and this one is more pigmented than the ColourPop palette. So the next one I wanted to compare it to was the Power and Colored Rain collab. Let me see if I can get all that in the frame there. That's the Power and Colored Rain collab. It was a limited edition from what I understand, but they still have it in stock. So that palette looks like this. Definitely super pigmented, definitely more red toned, and doesn't quite give you the same kind of look and feel as the Violet Voss palette. So you would have some different shades there. And the last palette that I wanted to compare it to was actually the Moonspell palette by Lunar Beauty, which is super, super gorgeous. It's Manny MUA's brand. And it definitely has a handful of really nice purples that kind of run along the top there. So there's the purples from Manny's Moonspell palette. And again, you can compare them to the Violet Voss palette. I definitely think you have a couple of these matte shades that are very similar to the shades in the Violet Voss palette, but the shimmer direction that Manny went in is very different. In general, after using it for 3 different eye looks, I've been very happy with what I've been able to put together for this, and I am really looking forward to continuing to explore this palette a little bit more fully. I definitely think if you're somebody who likes purples and you acknowledge how hard it is to formulate purples, this is a great palette for you to enjoy those purple tones. It's very rich. For $18, 10 different shades, I'm happy with this product and I will continue to use it for sure. So that is the first impressions, the 3 looks that I've made with this palette, and the comparison swatches that I have for you for my purple tones in my collection. You'll have to let me know down in the comments if you're planning on picking this up, if you've already tried it, what you think of it, and if you feel like there's something in your collection that already sort of takes the place of this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!